On this episode of Cup of Joe, you will hear about the Farm Bill, tar spot and corn, soybean gall midge, and planting the package with Stine Corn.
Welcome to Cup of Joe, episode number 7. It was a big week this week, wasn't it, guys?
It was.
And I'd like to introduce our group today again. We have Skip Long, our product manager, Turk Rigginator, our general sales manager, and Ben Pieper, our agronomist. And I think we'll start with Turk this week. I know that you have a lot to talk about, don't you?
Well, there's been some real exciting news this week for farmers and agriculture in general with the passage of the Farm Bill and the Chinese purchases. So the Farm Bill obviously got passed this week, and Trump should sign it, I believe, next week is what the thing is. And it's going to ensure farmers have a good program for the next 5 years. Continues to be more of a social welfare bill than it does a farm bill. 70 billion, 3/4 of the Farm Bill is associated with the food stamps program, which again is probably a good thing, because without having that broad political support for the welfare program, it'd be tougher to get that farm bills passed through. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to have those coupled together. But 3/4 of the Farm Bill is the welfare program or the food stamp program. So the other exciting news this week was China. Finally showed up in the marketplace. But the good news is since Thanksgiving, beans are up about 50 cents and corn's up about 25 cents. So I think as China continues to buy more, we'll see those markets recover.
That's great news, because at least we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
Skip, you've been pouring over a lot of data on Stine Corn. What are you seeing?
Well, this is really our first full year with the Stine hybrids. So we've done a lot of walking the fields, and that includes Ben and I both. And I've been crunching numbers, and what the numbers are telling me is, guys, you have to plant the package. I mean, you're going to have highs and lows. Everybody's got that, but the overall average is there if you diversify out with a full package of hybrids. The other thing, too, is we recommend or we suggest that you plant another 10% more. Guys, that value is there. It's real.
Why do you have to do that, Skip?
Well, part of it is they have a shorter statured hybrid. So you can actually plant more plants and support them with the same with their same program.
It's all about biomass.
It's all about biomass. I mean, if you talk with Harry Stine, he'll tell you there's 5 tons of biomass below ground and above ground.
Per acre.
Per acre. So if you have a 12-foot plant and you're going to a 10-foot plant, that means you can put more plants out there to offset that biomass from the big plants.
Mm-hmm. It's all about light interception, really.
It's light interception, and it's a growing curve for us, and getting the farmers to understand that. It's all about the light. The shorter the plant, the more open and upright leafed it is, the more energy you get to the plant, and the better it's going to yield.
Skip, I got one question. When you plant 10% higher population, how much yield would you expect to get from that planting Stine Corn at 10% more compared to if you just planted at your normal population?
Well, anytime you plant 1,000 more plants, you should get 6 to 8 bushel. So if you're at 30,000 population and you go to 33, you should expect to see 18 to 24. And it's probably going to cost you at the most maybe about $10 an acre to increase that population.
Pretty good return on investment.
Do the math.
Well, I've seen your data, and looking at the averages, Stine Corn had a pretty good year, and as we fine-tune these recommendations and get these hybrids at the right population, there's nothing but higher yields coming for the farmer. Plus, there is a little bit of a cost advantage to planting Stine Corn over some of the other brands, so that's a win too for the farmer.
Some of the things that we've seen this year with a lot of companies experience standability issues, Skip. Can you explain a little bit of what's going on there, why that happened?
Well, part of it was higher statured plants. We had a lot of crazy weather patterns. We've been getting suggestions from other agronomists. Part of it is maybe nutrient uptake didn't go into the plant like it should have. But the Stine plants are shorter, more upright leaf. They don't drag the wind. Your big, tall, conventional leaf hybrids had a lot of problems when the wind came in. Plus, Stine flowers early. The key to getting through pollination and having corn stand is the earlier you can pollinate, the quicker that stalk will stiffen up and stand. A lot of these plants probably got hit right at pollination or before, and they're very vulnerable at that stage.
Green snap, right?
Yep, correct.
Okay. That's another great advantage with Stine Corn. Ben, you've been in a lot of classroom sessions here this past week, haven't you?
I was up in Iowa City this week talking about they had many extension agents come in, and one of them was Dr. Allison Robertson. She is the plant pathologist up at Iowa State, and she hit on a couple pretty interesting key things, and I'll touch on basically the highlights. But tar spot is a big deal that is going to be happening. It's coming in on our eastern seaboard and our northern seaboard.
That's a fungus, right?
Yep. Tar spot's a fungus. It's coming in on corn. Basically, it looks pretty similar to rusts. They call it tar spot because it's got the same raised style fungus, kind of like a rust. It comes in, it overwinters in the soil. One of the key things that she's talking about, because this is so new, there's so many new. They're learning about it as they go. One of the key things is that it acts a lot like northern corn leaf blight and gray leaf spot because it has to deal with 60 to 70 degree weather. It likes cooler weather, and it has to have 7 hours of continual moisture. So gray leaf spot is almost its mirror in that image. It has one of the key things is if you have 10% leaf coverage of this tar spot on your fields, it's 10 bushel. If you have 20% leaf coverage, it's 20 bushel. So that trend continues. They've had fields up in Michigan. She was explaining that they had complete coverage, come in, and the field senesced or basically died off within 2 weeks.
When does it come in? When do we got to start watching for it?
That's the tricky part about this tar spot is because it does come in throughout the growing season. It can start as early as V6,
Wow.
And then it can travel all the way through the entire growing season and overwinters. It all depends on. I think they think it has a certain link to the growing degree units. So it can happen throughout the growing season, and it can be absolutely detrimental when it comes to yield impact.
What options do the farmers have?
That's the other tricky part about it. They have there's multiple management options. Tillage and rotation are the two things that they're leaning towards the closest right now. They're talking about avoiding high population corn. They're talking about avoiding excessive nitrogen rates. Fungicides, they basically they don't know a heck of a lot about it right now, but what they're saying is they do not want to lean on triazoles alone. You want to have a multi-mode of action fungicide, so you need a strobilurin and a triazole in combination to try to combat this tar spot deal. So
yeah, I could see where higher populations and densities could be an issue with the tall hybrids, but with Stine, you're still not even 10% more. Your biomass is the same as your normal planted corn.
Right. What they're trying to get away from what they're trying to avoid is the lack of. They want airflow to be able to travel through,
Sure.
to be able to dry out. No different than
That would
we
be
have
the
white
advan-
mold issues in corn. It's the exact same thing as what they're looking for because you have to have 7 hours of continued moisture for this to happen.
Okay.
That's the beauty of the Stine hybrid with the upright leaf. You've got a lot better airflow and sunlight in to dry that plant out, so you don't have that moisture issue.
So the tar spot was more of a problem this year because of all the extra moisture that we had.
It definitely.
It late in the season.
Yep, it definitely impacted it, but it's also, as it overwinters in the soil, we're going to continue to see this thing move, and I think we're going to definitely see it here in southeast Iowa. It's in our neighboring counties across the river. Northern Iowa is definitely going to be dealing with the problem as well.
Yeah.
So I wanted to add one more thing in here. Allison Robertson did do some fungicide efficacy tests like she always does. There are 2 new herbicides that are statistically fungicides. Sorry. There are 2 new fungicides that are statistically better than the rest of the game right now. And just like we have in our herbicide program, the more modes of action right now are adding to the efficacy. They are much, much more effective against the diseases that we're seeing right now. So Syngena's got one, and BAS have one that's not even named yet. So be looking for these fungicides to come across the market and look at 15 plus bushel yield advantages.
Moravis Neo, I believe, is the name of that.
Yep.
Syngenta one.
Yep, you're absolutely correct.
Anything else, Ben, that you want to bring up?
Allison talked about bacterial leaf streak in corn. That has to do with excessive rainfall. We kind of touched on Bob Hartzler's talk in previous meetings. He basically had the same message as what he did when we were...
The weed scientist, right?
Yep, Bob Hartzler, the weed scientist, were from last week or 2 weeks ago's episodes. The other little touch was soybean gall midge. We got a little bit of update on that.
That's an insect, right?
That is an insect. It's coming in western Iowa. They've seen it since 2011. Basically, Dr. Aaron Hodgson wanted us to keep scouting and looking at this. They don't foresee it moving very fast because it's only moving from soybean field to soybean field when you're switching from corn to soybean. So it doesn't have a huge, it doesn't travel very far, but it's something to keep scouting for.
So it's the insect that literally bores up the center of the soybean plant, and basically in the fall you have problems with standability because of it, and obviously yield reduction.
This is a problem earlier than fall, unfortunately, from what she was talking about. This soybean can affect in early vegetative growth all the way through reproductive growth. Once that soybean gall midge, the larva is the problem that we're dealing with. It likes to introduce itself in hail damage and other things like that, but it can infest healthy plants. Once they infect the plant and they get inside of it, it doesn't take much more than 4 weeks, and that plant's completely dead. So it's a problem. They're still working on. I have a whole bunch of things that doesn't affect this plant, doesn't affect this this pest, which is a problem. Planting date doesn't affect infestation, wide variety. So genetic background doesn't affect the pest.
It'll winter over.
They winter over in the soil. So if you have she showed a pretty clear example of a soybean field and a corn field. They're in a rotation every other year, and the damage just gets greater and greater and greater every year that pest's in the soybean field. So it just flip-flops back and forth.
Does tillage help?
Tillage does not help. They've looked at so many different variables. Tillage doesn't affect it. Seed treatments don't affect it. Cover crops don't affect it. Wide variety of weeds in the field versus clean fields doesn't affect it. What she's talking about right now is trying to blow an insecticide on when you're seeing the adults. So
once it gets inside, there's really no remedy.
And that would
at this point we don't
what
think
kind
so.
of a life cycle then do they carry? Do they carry a 3-4 week life cycle?
4-week life cycle and multiple generations. So it's going to be a difficult one to control or contain. But they're talking about once you start seeing the adults maybe haloing the field, they don't have any. I mean, this is hot off the press. This is brand new information. So they're still working on it.
This is almost like the Dectus stem bore south, then, isn't it?
It's got a lot of
It's almost like
similarities. Yep.
Well, farmers always have a lot to worry about. They got, and these are a couple new pests that we need to keep our eye on. So I'd like to conclude our episode today by saying Christmas is real close, and I've got one thing on my Christmas list that's at the very top, and that's the approval of Enlist E3 soybeans. And with the things that we're seeing going on right now, and with China, I think we're headed in the right direction. So we'll see. Maybe I'll get my Christmas present. I don't know. Time will tell. But anyhow, thanks for watching today. And as always, we appreciate your business, and thank you very much. And take care.